Hello, this is Joe Rodriguez from Texas State Technical College in Waco, Texas. This afternoon I'm going to demonstrate how to weld a saw blade, and I'd like for you to take a look at a saw blade that's really been damaged, or actually is in two pieces right now. And I'd like for you to take a look at the teeth. One of the most important things to do is to make sure that the teeth are going in the same direction. So if you notice, that tooth is pointing up in this direction, and I'd like these teeth to be facing in the same direction. So what I have conveniently done for you is I have scribed some lines on here, and I have exaggerated the lines. Hopefully you can see those. Now what we want to do is we want to fold the saw blade in half, and then I want to invert this half onto the other side, so that when we are actually welding the saw blade, we have a nice straight line. And when we fold it back, even if we were to grind this really exaggerated with a bad angle on there, that they will come back together in the same location. So as you can see, if we were to actually grind that off, you would have an overlap there, and you'd still have a nice straight center on the back, and that line would match up with the line underneath. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go over to the grinder, and we're going to grind this blade. Ready to grind these two pieces together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little clamp on here to hold those together, because when you're grinding these two blades, they'll start to basically jump up and down and slap each other. So I'm going to get this clamp close to that edge prior to grinding it. So I've got that clamped up together. I'm going to start the grinder, and then we will grind this. So I'm going to stand over to the side. So I'm going to expose my body again to the grinder, and I'll start the grinder. Wait a couple of seconds before you present yourself in front of the machine. At that point, what we want to do is just grind these two pieces together. And because I have a clamp down here, I want to just I'm going to angle this up slightly, and I just want to touch those and grind those together. Now as long as I have those two pieces ground together in one particular piece, then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so there's the two edges, or two sides, have been ground together, and now we're just going to deburr them slightly, and then we will be ready to weld the blades. So I'm going to take just the edge. There's a little burr created on each side, so I'm just going to take that edge off of each side just very lightly with the grinder, very lightly. Okay, so now the burr is gone. Now just to clarify, I'll turn the grinder off. Just to clarify, these angles that I put on here as a demonstration are just simply to let you know that if you were to grind these edges at a very exaggerated angle, that they would come together without any problems, without any mismatch. They would fit exactly like they should. Welder on the saw. What we're going to do is set the machine up so we can weld the saw blades together. Now if you remember the way that we had this, I have to flip this back and then fold it over so that we have that blade being welded in the proper direction. So with that, in that particular form, we're going to put the blades together. Now again, make sure that the teeth are facing in the same direction, otherwise we're going to have a problem. Now if you notice, there is no gap. When we ground those, you can see that they come together very, very closely and very, very tightly, and that's what we're looking for. So we want to put that in the middle. Now I originally set this pressure at S1 here because this is the 1-inch blade, and that's what's recommended for the wider blade. So I'm going to put this blade here right about all the way to the back gauge, and then I'm going to lock this up. Then I'll move the other blade to it and lock that up and make sure that they're good and tight. The next thing I want to do is I want to set some preload on here, and we're going to turn this button all the way to max because this is the maximum size of the welder. And then we're going to hit this button and hold that button, and that should fuse and weld the blade together. Ready? Here we go. Now you've got to hold that blade together. Now if you get it close up, you can see the weld that we've just performed. And now we're going to let that sit until it cools off just slightly, and then we're going to loosen this back up again. That released the preload. Now we'll take this back over S1. That's going to open it up a little bit. And now we're going to clamp up again. And now we're going to have to anneal the blade, or soften the blade, if you will. If we were to test this blade without doing the annealing portion, it would break because the blade at this point is extremely brittle. So right now we're going to anneal it, and anneal it is, the term annealing is to heat the material back to cherry red hot and then slowly cool it. So I will be pulsating this annealing button here as we go through the annealing process. So we'll start that process right now. You can see that it's starting to get red all the way, cherry red all the way across, and that's what we're looking for. And then I'm going to pulsate it. I want it to cool slowly, and I'll do that a couple of times. Make sure that it's fully annealed. Now I want to do this one more time. So start that process again. You can see it's starting to get cherry red hot, and then I'm going to pulsate it, and that slows it down, cools it down slower or slowly, and then we'll let that cool for a little bit. And then there's a little test that we do with it. Since the saw blade is going to be going around a wheel very much like this, we need that blade to be flexible enough to go around there without breaking. So what we're going to do is we've got a little test that I'm going to demo for you here. And I demo it typically over the top of my head, because if it does snap, I don't want it to snap in front of my face. So what I do is I'll put it over my head, and then you can see that I can bend that fairly easily in both directions without breaking. So that's the little test. Okay, the next piece that we're going to do is we're going to go back to the grinder and eliminate the weld that we have here. We're going to try and get that blade cleaned off. You can see the high spots on there, and it's going to be going through some guides. I'll show you the guides here. It's going to be going through some guides very similar to this. And so what we need to do is to remove this flash, this metal that we have here. We need to remove that metal so that the blade will go through the guides. Back on the grinder, so I just started the grinder. We'll wait a few seconds and then we'll present ourselves to the grinder. Okay, so now I've got to remove this flash that I have here, and I'll do that with this grinder, and I'm going to go up and down. Now I realize that I've got to go all the way across this blade, both the bottom and the top side of it. So we're going to try to remove all of that material that we have back there. And then we'll do the same thing on the back side. Looks like we've got that to where it's nice and even and smooth. So with that, I'll take that little burr off the back side. Got a little bit of a flash on the back. And you take a look at it, you got a nice blade that we've removed all the lashing from. We're going to go back and do one more anneal, so I do a triple anneal on these blades. Let's go back to the welder one more. Okay, so we're going to set this back into the welder and we're going to anneal it. And again, annealing is bringing the temperature up to red, cherry red hot, and then letting it cool slowly. And here it comes. Again, I'm slowly cooling it. And I'm going to move it out on both sides a little bit, just so that we get a nice anneal a little bit further out. And you can see that coming along. I'm going to tap that just so it cools slowly. And then I'm going to move it over to the other side and do the same thing. This is just going to widen that annealing area a little bit. Make sure that it's good and soft and pliable, able to get around the driving wheel here. You can see that coming cherry red, and I'm pulsating it, making sure that it's pulsated going down. Now you should have a fully annealed saw blade, as you can see, fully annealed, ready to go on the machine. We can double check that again, make sure that you can get a good flexible blade that does not break. And again, we check that over on the top of our head so that if it does snap here, that I don't hurt myself or injure myself because of it. Thank you.